today we're going to cut right through all the noise and go straight to the source. We are diving deep into Ayatollah Khomeini's foundational 1970 book, Velayat-e Faqih, which translates to Governance of the Jurist. And our goal here is pretty simple. We want to understand what this incredibly influential and, let's be honest, controversial text actually says, using its own words. And we're going to jump in with the most famous phrase of them all, the one that's constantly attributed to Iran's revolutionary leader. Did he really call for Israel to be wiped off the map? It's a quote that has echoed through international politics for decades. To get to the truth, we have to push past the headlines and look at the blueprint itself. But, to really understand where that hostility comes from, you can't just look at the quotes. You have to understand the kind of political world Khomeini wanted to create. His entire vision, really the whole blueprint for the Islamic Republic, is built on this one single concept, Velayat-e Faqih. So what is it? Well, to put it simply, it's a theory of government where the top leader isn't a king or a president, but a highly qualified Islamic legal scholar. In a system like this, political power and religious authority, they're not separate. They're fused together in one person, the supreme jurist, whose job it is to put God's law into practice on earth. Okay, so here are the building blocks of that vision. Khomeini's argument is that Islam isn't just a personal faith, it's a complete blueprint for how to run a society. That means, rejecting things like monarchies and Western political systems. It means all laws have to be based on Sharia. And crucially, it says it's the religious duty of scholars to take power. The whole point isn't just reform, it's total top-to-bottom revolution. And this right here, this is the book's central diagnosis of the problem. For Khomeini, every issue plaguing the Muslim world, we're talking corruption, weakness, foreign occupation, it all boils down to one single cause: the lack of a true Islamic government. So his theory, this Velayat-e Faqih, isn't just pitched as a good idea. It's presented as the only possible cure. And that link is absolutely critical for understanding everything that comes next. So, if an Islamic government is the solution, what exactly is the problem it's supposed to fix? Well, to answer that, we have to look at how the book itself defines the enemy. And we're going to use direct quotes right from the official English translation. Right out of the gate, in the introduction on page 7, the text sets up a primary antagonist. And listen to how it frames the conflict. It's not presented as a modern political fight, but as this ancient historical struggle going all the way back to the start of Islam, identifying Jews as the first and, it says, the continuing source of opposition. Now, this passage from page 22 is one of the most famous ones. And there are two really important things to notice here. First, how it frames the conflict over Palestine as an occupation by a handful of Jews. But second, and this is so important, it immediately calls them agents of America, Britain, and other foreign powers. So right there, it connects that religious historical argument directly to a modern anti-colonial one. And as you go deeper into the book, these ideas just get more intense. The text accuses Jews and their supporters of wanting to dominate the entire world and of running evil propaganda centers. And then it issues a very direct call to action: destroy those centers and liberate Palestine, which it defines as a core part of the Islamic world. Which, of course, brings us all the way back to our first question. We've seen what the book says about the enemy. So now, let's take apart that single most famous phrase, piece by piece, the one that always gets translated as wiped off the map. And this, right here, is the heart of it, because words matter. The original Persian uses the word regime. That means regime, a system of government. It does not mean land or state. It talks about the Ashgalgari Quds, which means the occupier of Jerusalem, carefully avoiding the name Israel. And then, most importantly, Safeh-e-Rezgar literally means the page of time or the annals of history. It does not mean map. So when you put it all together, the literal correct translation of that famous slogan isn't about wiping a country off a physical map. It's about a political structure, a regime that needs to disappear from history. Now, of course, the meaning is still extremely hostile, there's no question, but the language being used is political and historical, not geographical. Now, this ideology definitely didn't just end with Khomeini. It's very much alive. So let's take a quick look at how this language and these core ideas were carried forward by his successor, and you can see a direct line of continuity right through the Islamic Republic. The central idea is still there, but you could argue the language has gotten even more direct under Khomeini's successor, Ayatollah Khamenei. His rhetoric has sharpened, using phrases like a cancerous tumor that has to be removed from the region. And he's also just said it flat out: Israel must be destroyed.
So even though the exact words might change, that ideological goal of getting rid of the political entity, that has remained completely constant.
Okay, so after digging through the source text itself, where does that leave us? Let's try to wrap this up and clarify what Khomeini's blueprint actually says, and maybe just as important, what it doesn't say. So here's the bottom line. The text does explicitly call Jews historical enemies who are working with foreign powers. It does call the liberation of Palestine a core duty for Muslims. But, and this is a huge but, it's a political manifesto. It's not a holy book. And it does not contain the literal phrase wiped off the map. The focus, again and again, is on overthrowing the regime, which it considers an illegitimate political structure.
And that leaves us with one final thought. We've just seen how a few crucial words can be translated or maybe mistranslated to paint a very specific picture. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How much of our understanding of these massive global conflicts is shaped not just by what people do, but by the precise language we use to talk about it.